Not to tell you how to do your podcast, but you should talk about the Filoni situation.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I also didn't look, so I wouldn't know.
He got promoted.
Oh, okay.
He's basically like a partner level of whatever Kathleen Kennedy.
And before we get started, Hooper, I do want to just go ahead and make sure you're aware that Carrie Fisher is dead.
From cocaine.
I'm going to create a list for you of all the dead people. Man, why did the Star Wars franchise look so bad before it died?
He's being Dave Filoni is being promoted to chief creative officer at Lucasfilm.
Oh, wow.
He will work alongside Kathleen Kennedy and head of development Carrie Beck.
He's not dying, is he?
No, I gotta get some water. I'll be right back.
Dead Filoni.
Dead Filoni. Oh, man.
My baloney. I'm gonna get some water.
Yeah.
I got chocolate on my pants and it looks so much like poop.
You're just saying that preemptively before we all think it's poop.
No, I got it on me, and then like it's just been there all day. But I was working from home, and I'm like, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I went outside with I'm taking care of Zach and Emily's dog. I went outside with the dogs, and I've just got this like chocolate stain that looks like doo doo. And my neighbor was just standing there talking to me, and I'm like, do I bring up the doo doo stain? Do I say anything? And I didn't say anything, so she just thought I got chocolate poop on my pants.
Okay. Hello again, everybody.
Hello.
Kellan, Dustin.
Welcome back.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to talk to you two about, I think we all really wanted to talk about Star Wars, but I wanted us to talk about Star Wars lately. Stuff's been coming out. Sounds like I'm saying stuff's coming out about it. No
allegations.
Things are being produced and made, and there's been shows and movies and whatnot, and it's been a whole thing. So, I watched a few things that I know we have not all seen, but I'll just give you guys a cross section of what I have watched recently that sort of made me want to talk about all this. So whatever, this past year, I guess, I've watched the third season of The Mandalorian. There's been Ahsoka, Andor, and then I went back and watched Rogue One after I watched Andor. I saw the Light and Magic docuseries about ILM, just because it was there. And then I watched Solo because I had not seen that. And you two had, and I figured I should, it would be good if I watched it. So, Kellan, you've only watched Andor.
I watched all of that except for Ahsoka. Oh, recently? What do you mean?
Well, no, you're right. You didn't watch Ahsoka. Did you see The Mandalorian season 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I did not. Yeah. So I've seen Mandalorian season 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Rogue One and I saw Solo.
Yeah.
I was going to try to be done with Andor by this podcast, but I'm literally on the last episode.
Gotcha.
So I'm so close, 40 minutes from being finished with that. And that's it.
You didn't see it.
Did not watch season 3 of Mandalorian, did not watch Ahsoka, did not watch Book of Boba Fett.
I watched that.
Boba Fett was terrible. Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. I think we all watched Kenobi. That was bad.
Oh yeah, I did see
that
Kenobi.
Was worse.
I forgot that even existed.
Kenobi is the worst thing I've ever seen Star Wars make.
Really?
Yes. Kenobi's horrible.
I mean, I've seen the new trilogy, so I can't say that about Kenobi, but
Yeah, but
Dustin, it's worse than anything.
It's pretty bad.
Is it? Okay, I mean,
Well, and that's
I
saying
saw
a lot.
Kenobi, but yeah,
I think
it's as
Rise
bad
of
as everything
Skywalker
else.
and Kenobi are fighting for the bottom of the fucking barrel.
At least Rise of Skywalker is sort of fun sometimes. There's nothing.
Is it?
At least I'm at least, well, for me it was like, at least I'm watching, I'm going like, all right, well, I can, like, my lizard brain's enjoying parts of this. Like, it doesn't make any sense and I don't care, but like, you know, the ships look cool.
That's a good point. And I don't know how you want to structure the conversation. But
yeah.
Okay. So I think
I wanted to talk about whether or not we're overall enjoying this, or if, you know what I mean? Like, just how are we feeling about things, you know?
No.
So what I think, you said lizard brain. You said lizard brain. And I think there's just like, there's two factors that I think split group. Like, it's like a not a Venn diagram, like a Punnett square situation where the two factors are lizard brain or actual like analytical film brain and caring about storytelling. And then there's the side of the coin that's like, do you just care about the things that are like Star Warsy? Right. Or do you want to see new things? So like the reason why, you know, I haven't watched Ahsoka, but the reason why I don't really care to watch it, I don't even have an opinion on it, is that I actually just find Jedi stuff really boring. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't like magic in my sci-fi, and I know Star Wars isn't a sci-fi, but Andor feels the most sci-fi I think a Star Wars ever has, because it's about people and the society that in which they live. And it's not about magic doers.
While we're on that point, I disagree, because I think with Star Wars specifically, I view it as a fantasy.
Yeah, and that's why.
So for me, when you take, so again, I'm not finished with Andor, but when you take all of the magic out of it, I think it actually feels not like Star Wars. And to me, no matter how good it is, it's not Star Wars. So like for me so far, again, not done with it, but Andor, to me, it's not Star Wars. It just isn't. It's just its own thing. It doesn't matter. It's not Star Wars, because it would be the equivalent of taking Lord of the Rings and removing all the magic from it. It doesn't, that doesn't make it, that's not Lord of the Rings. Like, you could say, well, this is just a street level story about humans in this one town where magic never happens. I'm like, well, then it's not Lord of the Rings. Like, how, like, a good section of Lord of the Rings is the magic. It's the mystical element of it. And so for me, removing that completely sort of removes it from the world, the story world. And so for me, like, I think any of Star Wars should have that magical element in it. And if that element is missing, it's not complete.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
And I disagree with that to a certain extent, but it's also pretty evident that, like, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. It's mostly because I'm not as big of a fan of the fantasy and the themes. But also at the same time, I think they could achieve what you're looking for in a Star Wars show and still not have to have it be the same characters shoehorned in. Like, you know, like 6 Degrees to Luke Skywalker kind of shit.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So like it could have had like a Force user or something in it.
Yes.
And stuff like that. But like, it's either they go straight for the nostalgia, straight for the like, you know, member berries kind of thing.
Yep.
Or they do something like Andor, which is completely out of left field and takes itself way more seriously.
Well, I think you split the difference and do Rogue One, where it's pretty street level. You know, there's not much of a mystical element, but then Donnie Yen's there to remind you of the Force, to remind you of this, you know, thing. And like, he's not connected to Luke, he's not connected to Anakin, and he doesn't have to be. And in my mind, like, the further we get away from that, probably the better at this point. So, you know, like, it's weird because if you look at other fantasy series like Harry Potter, right, the further you get from Harry, the less I care. And with Star Wars, I feel like the further you get from Luke, the more I would care. Because Luke, that story's been done to death. The time period between Anakin's birth and death is just done to death. I don't know how we've gotten as much content as we have in this small amount of time. Of what, like, I don't know how old Vader is when he dies. 60? Who knows? Right. But like in that amount of time for there to be this much story is just redonkulous. And so for me, but I agree with you. I think we need to just move on away from it.
He looked pretty old when he died. He could have been any age though.
It's true.
He could have been 40.
He did get burned to a crisp.
You guys, he also had cancer. You're being really insensitive. Can't believe that twice now. Hoover's he
like,
had
that guy looked awful.
cancer.
He got burned.
Have some sympathy.
Oh yeah, he did get burned. You're right. That's why he's all fucked up. The way that I spoke about what I'm looking for in Star Wars is how I feel, and you can basically apply that to any of the stuff coming out. Like,
yeah,
I care about character stuff. I don't care about remember when stuff.
Yes,
I don't
agreed.
care about like superficial, shallow, like emotional pulls. Like the stupidest thing they did was like, we killed Chewbacca and psych, he's not dead.
We didn't.
Like all this kind of stuff that I'm just like, it's really weird seeing a juggernaut franchise that like, while I don't want to just see the same stuff regurgitated out, it's really strange to see like really amateurish decision making in terms of storytelling and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a large factor, of decision making that was that, turn your brain off, and it's a popcorn movie kind of thing. And it's like, I just don't have a lot of time. I don't want to suffer that kind of stuff very much anymore. I want to see some good storytelling. So
yeah, at this point, the way I look at it is there's always been a difference between Trek and Wars, but now more than ever. Well, I can't really say that because Trek's kind of fallen off, but like it feels like if you compare the franchises at large, it's like Trek is for the thinking man and Wars is for the lizard brain man. And
both are for the lizard brain.
And now they're both for the lizard brain man. But that's always been kind of like the distinction. And it used to be maybe like Star Wars was for the fun. That's where you got your fun, and Star Wars is where you got your ethical dilemmas. I mean, Star Trek is where you got your ethical dilemmas.
Yeah.
And now it's like Star Wars is where you go to tell low-level, stupid storytelling, and it's not fun, and it's taxing, and it's dumb. And Star Trek is where you go to see lens flares.
So if we're kind of like hinging this conversation on the Andor side of things, like, and I've been watching a lot of, I didn't rewatch the show. It's been a while since I saw it, but I did watch some YouTube video essays, cringe or non-cringe, it's up to you. But a lot of it I found really interesting because like, I agree, Dustin, that if I like this show as much as I do, it means it must not be very Star Warsy. Like, and that sounds really petty. I really do think a lot of this just comes down to like preferences and what I'm looking for from my, media. And Star Wars just doesn't tend to be it because it literally is fantasy and space. And it's the same reason I don't get into fantasy. I know a bunch of people didn't like it for these very reasons, but it did feel nice to know that if you're going to have this be a universe, like it's an IP juggernaut universe, it's not a franchise. It is people live, sleep, and breathe this shit. It is nice to know that it can stretch legs into other pant legs. Is that a metaphor?
Sure, it is now. Go for it.
It can fill other voids. It doesn't have to be this one thing. So like, I was just sitting there and, relatively amazed that I was like, I'm actually like gleaning smart storytelling and character building from a Star Wars thing that never bothers to be more than, relatively surface level.
Yeah.
There's like strong themes in it, and people hinge a lot of their, their multimedia love onto certain things about Star Wars, but I've never really found it deep, and I never really found the politics engaging or any rebels' motivations, because the cartoonish, empire was always just kind of like a
we're British and we're stoic and we're mad at you.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, the space wizards are gonna defeat the guys that blow up whole planets. Like,
right.
I get it. But I just really enjoyed Andor because it didn't go, and now here's the part where a Jedi jumps in and does all the work that these people are trying to do with his hand wave. Like,
yes,
I don't know. It was nice to see people that literally never, I know they didn't have a plan for the rebellion and how they got the, all this stuff way back when, but to know that they're putting that kind of thought into it and it does matter when it matters is pretty cool. My one little aside is I don't know if you guys, Dustin, I think I've made you watch some Gundam at this point, but that's
a little bit.
It's an anime series. It's very long running. It's very deep, long timeline if you follow the same one central timeline. But it's a sci-fi, and it's much more sci-fi than Star Wars is. But it also has a through line of magic where characters, instead of like Force users, they're called new types, and they can basically like speak to one another telepathically, sometimes make stuff move, and like harness this energy from this new type of the tech. Don't worry, it doesn't matter. But it's like the main through line of the story. But I find the best storylines are the ones that are people that do not have this power, and it's never brought up because they're the ones just like doing the grunt work and on the front lines kind of thing, and like dying in mass. So
yeah,
I just think it's nice.
Yeah, and I think so. I'll give a quick incomplete review of Andor, which for me is, and the last episode could change this, but I think generally not. The problem with Andor is it doesn't give me what I want out of a Star Wars show, and it is well constructed, and you can't deny that it's the most prestige TV thing that Star Wars has ever made. But I mean, when you compare anything to Kenobi, it is. But
it got like some Emmy nominations.
But yeah, well, and so did Mandalorian though. Like, but while it's well constructed, I really zoned out for a lot of it. And like it started really strong and then completely lost me and then started to gain me back a little bit. And now I'm in this weird realm where I'm like, I'll finish it, but I'm not eager to finish it. Like I'll just finish it because I've only got 40 minutes left. And like all the political stuff with Mon Mothma and Skarsgård is so uninteresting to me.
Really?
So uninteresting.
Interesting.
Like, and it's not the nature of political tension that I'm against. I just don't care about Star Wars. And I think that's what it boils down to is like here they are doing this thing. And I'm like, if I have to watch one more freaking rebel against the Empire, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't care. Like I genuinely don't care. And so they're like Andor, his story's fine. Like anytime they cut to Andor, I'm like, cool, I'm home. But then like they cut back to the political stuff and I'm like, I don't care about your stupid rebellion and I don't care about the stupid Empire. I just want to see this one dude do some cool stuff and get mistreated and persevere. Darn it. And like, but anytime you go to the like en masse version of like, let's zoom out and look at what the Empire's doing and what its effect is and how we're going to combat this. I'm like, I've already seen the Empire fall. Like, I don't care. Hey, plot twist. You don't succeed. It's only because the Jedis. That's it. Like, y'all all suck and everyone sucks. And so I don't know. I'm just so uninterested. And I'm like, if any of these characters mattered, they would matter in the story and they don't. Like Mon Mothma. I had to look that person up. I was like, is she even in the trilogy? I was like, who is this person? They're treating her like I'm supposed to know who she is. And I Google it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember her face. And I'm like, what does she even do in the trilogy? I have no idea. I have no clue.
Well, and she was literally on screen for like a couple of shots in the original trilogy.
And this is the member berries. It's like, we're going to remember this character. Let's flesh her out. And I'm like, but she didn't matter.
Yeah.
She didn't matter.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's just kind of like I'm putting it in good graces because I'm comparing it to like I just was so surprised when I was watching it because I remember all of you like John, all the text was we were just like I'm not doing more Star Wars. I can't do it, and I was like I'll take on the mantle.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I'll sacrifice my worthy time.
Yeah. I don't think this is a waste of time though.
Yeah, I bet you if I rewatched it right now, I would just be going, I just want to get to the prison. I just want to get to the prison. Like that.
The prison.
That was cool.
I would watch a prison break movie in the Star. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like when I can see something I never thought I would see in Star Wars, which is 3 episodes.
Yeah.
All very repetitive in this prison scape that I'm betting you all these people who just want to see like Y bombers and ATSTs are flipping the fuck out about how boring it is. And I'm just going, I love this. I just want to see small stories in Star Wars. I don't care.
Totally agree. Anytime Andy Serkis gets to deliver like really intense dialogue without blinking, I'm like, yes, sir.
Dude,
that's what I want.
It's very good for Andy Serkis. Yes.
But like, yeah, no, I agree. And here's the thing with, in terms of the arc for Andor, I feel like it's weird. Like his storyline is like vignettes. It's not like an overarching thing. And that's an interesting decision. I think that can work. And I think that can also detract. I don't know that it detracts here. I think I could see where people just don't like that. And I could see where people really do like it, because it's like his decision at the beginning, affects how he operates. And then he just kind of gets like, bam, I'm in prison now. Yeah. But it's not necessarily because he did anything to get himself there. So it feels plot driven rather than character driven. But at the same time, it is kind of character driven because it does kind of fall from that. But then it's like, oh, but his mom dies. And I don't know, maybe something happens in the last episode. But like for me, it's like, oh, his mom dies. Well, that's kind of unrelated to anything. That's kind of a lucky stroke to get into the climax of this thing. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but some of this is, like, I think this is all well constructed, but I can totally see how some people would not like that, the way that unfolds.
Yes. And actually, like when I was watching it, I remember just being like, it is a very weird story arc, because the only thing that kind of follows what you'd expect is the larger rebellion backstory. Like you get the information at the pace that you would expect. It culminates in the way, and yada, yada. But like, the show being named after Andor, I was like, it is a really weird plot beat. But then like when I played it back, it's almost like it was the heist, middle point, prison. And like what I think it did was, and this is why I do think it's a good character study, is that like the first thing was like he was doing it for mostly selfish reasons, but he was basically made contact with the ideals of rebellion and hope and standing up to oppressors, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And then when thrust into the ultimate miniature version of the rebellion and empire, and he's just a guy in prison with a bunch of despondent, broken people that have been there way longer than him kind of thing. It was basically Andor was the mini rebellion inside of the prison thing. So like, it's where he found that spark inside of himself. And like, I don't think it was played out in like a Messiah kind of way that Star Wars tends to do with its protagonists. I think it was done in this is a normal ass dude who, like all of us, just wants to live a comfortable life and never has been able to. But like in extreme circumstances, it can come from, the most random of people kind of thing. So,
and I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you complete it with Rogue One, which I haven't seen since theaters, but the idea being like, here's a guy who's sort of deeply entrenched with the rebellion, and he's going to be key and pivotal to receiving the plans for the Death Star, which will, enable the rebels to win. Like all of this, has to start somewhere. And so it makes sense to kind of backtrack it in your mind and say, this is just a normal dude who's kind of like doing his own thing, and then is thrust into this larger world, this larger story. And how do we make him care so that by the time we see him in Rogue One, it makes sense then that he would sacrifice his entire life to end the empire, and make sense of that arc in that film where, inevitably he dies. It's like, where do we, how does a person get to the point where they're willing to sacrifice their very life for that?
Yeah. And that prompts me to poke you, Connor, because I haven't seen Rogue One in years at this point. I remember liking it. I also remember some of the things people complained about, but I also don't think it was as, and maybe it's because the film, because I know it's involved with the same people at least, right? Writing wise, maybe.
I could know. I could check on that real quick.
I don't think it's just only related because of Andor, Cassian Andor or anything like that.
Yeah, a little bit. So Tony Gilroy co-wrote the screenplay. And Tony Gilroy is, I believe, one of the He's an executive producer on Andor. So he's somewhat involved.
He directed some of Andor. I remember that name.
I just remember Rogue One wasn't written amazingly. I think it was just the tone was different, and that's what kind of struck me so much. So maybe the same people, some of the same people involved getting to stretch their legs with more runtime allows for something like this. But I wanted to see what you thought, having rewatched it recently. Like, does it feel like
you didn't like Rogue One when it came out? Of the three of us, you liked it the least.
Yeah, I didn't like it when it came out. I think I didn't attach to Jen Erso as a character, and it was the first Star Wars thing that had been made at that time that was not about Jedi. And I love lightsabers, and I love Jedi,
See,
and I love
you tip one way or the other.
Right. So for me, it's like, okay, Star Wars, there's lightsabers, and there's Jedi, and there's mysticism, and there's philosophy, and there's cool cool fights and stuff and ships and shit. So as far as it relates to Andor and to Rogue One, I leaned hard against Rogue One when it came out because I was like, this is not what I want out of Star Wars. Watching it again, I had a completely different opinion. I retract my previous statement on Rogue One because, I was always impressed by the scale of the film that it displayed. It did a good job of like just with cinematography and with visual effects, just like doing it in production design, doing a good job of like, at least for me, doing a better job than because this is 2016, so you're measuring it against the prequels at this point, and maybe like the first.
Yeah, I think
Force Awakens.
Episode 7 had come out. Yeah,
right. So you're measuring it against that, but like,
wasn't Rogue One the only one out at that point? That was the very first released Disney Star Wars.
Force Awakens was
Force
the year
Awakens
before.
was first.
Really?
Yeah. Rogue One came out in December of 2016, and The Force Awakens was the previous Christmas. My main point was like it was cool looking, but I wasn't on board with the characters of the story. And so I'm looking back on it, and I think at least the film may have been ahead of its time for me on that front, because I was comparing it to the Jedi-centric Skywalker stories and everything that I came to compliment about The Mandalorian or Andor or Ahsoka. It was all done first in Rogue One. All the things I now appreciate about Star Wars, the new stuff, was first done in this movie. The texture that it seemed to add to the world. I think the movie's pretty solid. I feel as much for these characters as any others on the Disney Plus shows. I think the effects aged okay. The visual style set the tone for what Star Wars is now, pretty much en masse. So I liked it. I'm looking at stuff like the battle in the third act, like all the cool shit. I'm looking at, I'm like, wow, like I feel like such an asshole for saying I didn't like this. I think I was going story is king at the time, and this looks great, but I'm not connecting with it. And I'm looking at it now like, no, I'm connecting with it. That's fine. The first couple episodes of Andor were really a slog for me because I was bored. I was tuned out. I wasn't really invested. It picks up for me. And like you guys have been saying, I think that what it does really well is it's just, what I really appreciate about it is that it's just different. It barely feels like a Star Wars show. It's cynical, it's tangible, it's morose. I don't feel like narrative excitement like I should in Star Wars. But it feels different from the Disney popcorn stuff that other people are making with Star Wars properties. And I think that both can and should exist, because shows like Andor give texture to the world, and then other shows like Ahsoka, do their stay on the more not positive, but more black and white side of things, and have more fun with it. But the underlying texture and complexity and amoral stuff of Star Wars reflects in that show as well. It just doesn't take a front seat like it does in Andor. I mean, in Andor, people eat, for Christ's sake. They eat snacks. I saw a guy drinking from a Yeti, and people are doing normal shit. My holistic view of all this stuff is that it's kind of like we're already in a plan B or below with Star Wars, with properties that maybe Star Wars isn't the right example for, like that we all love. I mean, I think we all sort of are generally okay about Star Wars as a thing. It's starting out, but then the more you make of a property, the harder it is to keep quality control. The more time passes, the more you add to the lore, the more that people get to like add their piece of the story, the more that the story kind of might fuck up over time because somebody didn't do a good job, and that infects the rest of the thing. And so a big thing we face right now with content and with all this stuff is like there's so much being made that's supposed to connect to stuff that already exists, and everything that's made recontextualizes the things that already exist. So you're kind of expected to see all of it for it to have the desired effect. So having seen all these things, I think it works well together while still maintaining somewhat of their own voice because, like I said, Andor and Ahsoka are pretty different shows, but their presence kind of has balance overall in the whole Star Wars thing. I'm very forgiving of these shows and enjoying them for what they are. But there's so much of it that my overall feeling after all this is like, it's not that any of this is not any good. It's more just like, oh, I don't know. What are we doing? Yeah. Like it's kind of weird. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole because we've discussed this so much on this podcast, but we talk all the time about like, how are we supposed to watch all this? And so obviously the answer is, if you want to, you do. And if you can't, you don't, you know?
Yeah.
I thought that what Andor achieved as a Star Wars show was some semblance of trying to say something about radicalization and about, marginalized people. And I thought that my favorite parts of Andor were everything related to the Empire employees.
Dude, yeah, some of that stuff was really good. Like the round table rooms.
Yeah. Their big boardroom thing. I was like, oh.
Like when they weren't just like idiots.
Yeah.
Like when they were like, this is obviously a trap that they're setting and blah, 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 blah. Let's play that, double play them kind of thing. It's just oh, if this was the original, they would have been like, blow the ship out of the sky. Like,
but sire, do it, damn it.
Or whatever Fred Weasley said in that one movie he was in.
Yes.
What was his name?
General Hux.
Sure. Okay.
Huxtable.
So you said something and I wanted to mention it. What you said, it doesn't feel like what a Star Wars show should. And earlier you were saying like it didn't feel like what Star Wars is kind of thing. And what I think is interesting is that one, I agree. There's just like, it's insane that in this amount of time they've made this many shows. I think it's undeniable that Disney paid a ton of money and they were like, we're going to make this money.
Yeah.
So on one level, it is that conversation that, a lot of people are like, it's just content these days.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they expect everybody to watch it. And if I run with the business cynicism there, it's like, cool, I'm not going to watch all of it. But if you make stuff like X, that's my little grab bag kind of thing. Like I stopped going to all the Marvel MCU movies and just going to the ones that I'm like, Guardians 3. I didn't end up liking it, but the Love and Thunder Thor movie kind of thing. It's like, cool. If you're gonna make this much crap, please make it diverse because I will find the part that I do like.
Right.
But I'm not gonna watch Ahsoka. And it does kind of steer me back into talking about Mandalorian because Connor, you have seen all 3 seasons?
I've seen all 3 seasons.
Dustin, you've seen 2.
I've just seen 2.
Okay. That is a show that I think is fun to dissect in terms of like, I really liked it when it started. And now I'll probably watch season 4, but I'm also just like, they did what I didn't want them to do. The reason why I liked that show, and I was like, wow, this is really bold of Disney to come out of the gate with this first Star Wars show of theirs being about a character that has not existed before. Diving into like, well, people say they love Boba Fett, and I don't really get why. like the coolest thing about him was he came from, you know, and I
That's
didn't
like
watch
a
lot of
snake eating its own tail is the love for Boba Fett. Like it just
Ouroboros,
it
yeah.
exists because it exists, and no one knows when it started or why it started. But we all just know Boba Fett's cool, so we just it's a causal loop.
I think it's something because like he looks so cool that it must be
Does
deeper
he?
than that.
It just looks like a dude.
I think his Mandalorian armor looks pretty cool. I know some production designer just like farted it out in the 70s,
Right.
but like or the early 80s. But
I don't know, whatever.
So it started out and like I would never say that the Mandalorian was like smart. I don't think it's a very intelligent show. If you watch the way that like the characters interact, it feels very much like a A-Team type of thing. Yeah. But like I'm okay with that because I'm getting to see them do interesting new things. Granted, they go to Tatooine again.
Mm-hmm.
I want Mr. T in Star Wars. I'm sorry.
We never killed nobody.
We never killed nobody.
Anyway, but then they couldn't help themselves. The end of the first season, it's like, oh, we've got CG Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber fighting, you know, droids on a ship. And then like the second season was like, oh God, we're gonna bring all the, you know, Ahsoka made an appearance, I think, in season 2. Luke Skywalker, AI voice, Jedi training, like Grogu. And it's like, the more that you tie it back into the same tentpole characters, the more you shrink this galaxy to the point where I'm like, I just want to throttle you. You've got this huge thing with all this money. Have fun with it. Go do something new with it. And like, I'll watch a, you know, a popcorn eating kind of 18 Saturday morning show in Mandalorian. I'll watch a deep character drama like in Andor and stuff like that. But like, just don't make it all about the Skywalkers. It just drives me up a wall.
I've said this a million times. The Star Wars universe is a lot smaller than they'd have you believe. I wish it was huge, and maybe it's taking baby steps to get there. But to me, Star Wars is so beholden to the Skywalker legacy, and it's so beholden to like the things you've seen that it isn't actually that large. And when you do something like Andor and it feels like completely separate, then you start to feel like this doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah,
right. Because all Star Wars is ATST and lightsabers and Yoda. He speaks backwards and, you know, whatever. And like that's all the things that Star Wars, like, that's it. Like, that's all there is to it. And so when you move out from it, it just feels like there's nothing that resembles it anymore. Yeah. But I think they're starting to.
They made Destiny part of the story. Like, and that's another thing. Fate and Destiny, when it comes to storytelling, is one of my, like, I get why people like it, but all I do is it makes it feel like characters don't have agency.
Well,
you gotta get to this point because it's destined. Like, it's.
Well, I don't remember, and I'm not super familiar with Star Wars, like, lore, but like I don't remember when the idea of like the chosen one prophecy thing began. Was that episode 1? Is that where that
they
started?
Just said it'll bring balance to the Force, and it's like, what does that mean? Oh, the Jedi were reigning. Okay, you brought balance to the Force by making the Sith big.
Because the thing that I always connected with about the original trilogy, and why I still say like Star Wars to me is a trilogy of films that are good, and everything else that circles it is like on a scale of garbage to garbager, and like that's it. And like, but like for me, that original trilogy is so good because it takes 3 characters, Han, Luke, and Leia, and it applies to them Shakespeare's philosophy of some men are born great, some men have greatness. Some men are born great, some men achieve greatness, and some men have greatness thrust upon them. That's 3 characters. Mm-hmm. And to me, the story that is told is not fate necessarily, other than like Luke is chosen to this thing, like by his lineage or whatever. But it never appears that fate is driving Luke in the way that when you back up and look at the prequels, fate is pushing Anakin into this thing where he is the chosen one and he brings balance to the Force, even though like that, it's kind of like a retcon in a weird way. But like, to me, that's why the original trilogy works, is because those 3 characters, whether they were born great or achieve greatness or have greatness thrust upon them, they each work towards it. You know what I mean? And so that's why that works. With something like The Mandalorian, to me, that always scratched, and we've talked about this before, that always scratched the itch of like the original inspiration of Star Wars was Akira Kurosawa samurai films. And it scratched that itch for me. Where
it's the Wandering Ronin.
It's the Wandering Ronin. It's also a Western. It's this town ain't big enough for the two of us kind of thing that I really enjoy. And so
that was our podcast. Sorry, you and I pitched that for a Kenobi show.
Correct. And that's totally what it should have been. And that's what the original, what A New Hope was like the idea of the Jedi. They're this long forgotten, ancient thing that like, do they even exist? We don't know. And then we meet this old cowboy, right? And that's Kenobi. He's the Wandering Ronin. He's forgotten the ways, but like he is, this super cool Clint Eastwood, whatever, but he's like posh and British and whatever. But like, you know what I mean? Like he's this cowboy and that's great. And that's what I love Star Wars when it does that kind of thing. And then the idea of, this guy wandering from town to town and saving people. It's very Man with No Name. It's very like every Toshiro Mifune character. Toshiro Mifune plays like all of these characters, in Yojimbo and whatnot, like that are these guys that just wander into town, and there's this threat, this like feud that's been happening for a decade, and he's going to come in and solve it because he's got a sword. And like, that's super cool to me. And I love that idea. And that's why for me, like the ideal at this point of Star Wars, and I don't know, maybe we need to talk about like, what do you guys want out of Star Wars? What do you want the future of Star Wars to look like? For me, I want Star Wars to either go back in time to like way before Anakin, it was ever a thing, ever thought, like go way back in time and show me like
the Old Republic.
Yeah. I want to see like feudal Japan, galaxy, where it's like this Jedi who's like, I'm just a Jedi. I don't have a council. I don't have what I have this connection with this thing, and I'm going to, do what's right and stand up for the little guy and whatever. And that to me would be great. Or if you move forward, one thing that I hate that sequels are doing these days is they're undermining arcs from the original rather than building on them. And that's the number one reason why I do not like the newer Disney trilogy, is because rather than say these characters went from here to here and then now they're here, they instead said they went from here to here and then backtracked back to what they were so we can rebuild them again. Yeah. Right? Han achieved greatness. That was his point. He achieved greatness. He was
still smuggling shit.
And then he reverts back to not being great anymore.
And rather than not being great, able to maintain a relationship. Yeah.
Exactly. And same with Luke. This guy had greatness thrust upon him and he turns his back on it. That to me, that you're undermining your arc. You have to build on it. Okay. So he had greatness thrust upon him, and then but hold on, it's build on it. And so if that's where we go, as much as I don't like that sequel trilogy, like it's here to stay, they're not going to retcon it, they're not going to say it never happened, as much as I would love for them to. So you catapult us into the future and show us a galaxy at peace. And this is what they should have done anyway, is show us a galaxy at peace and show us how this corruption starts. Show us the seed of discord that will grow into, what the Empire was, and allow the Jedi and regular people who don't have a connection to the Force to fight back against this thing, knowing that they have something to protect now. It's not, and again, this is what the sequel trilogy should have been. We have a thing, we've achieved a thing, we have to protect it. Not, we achieved a thing. Oh, no, you didn't. Yeah. And so that's what you have to like build on it. So either go way back in time or build and show me something, new. It's good guys trying to protect the good rather than good guys that are the underdogs. Like I've seen it. Again, if I have to watch one more rebel against an empire, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose my mind.
They weren't rebels. They were resistance.
Yes.
I'm going to lose my mind.
I don't know what they were resisting if they were the government, but that's fine.
Correct. Because doggone it, one more point, that sequel trilogy, the perfect opening to that sequel trilogy would have been those three characters, Han, Luke, and Leia, in some place where Leia is ruling, and it's like Coruscant or whatever, like Coruscant 2.0, whatever it is, and she's like, yay, equality, yay, peace, we're all great, everything's fantastic, and they're all happy and everything's great, and then you lose it.
Yeah.
Now that's something like I've seen it, but the movie started and they never had it. I never saw the Galaxy at Peace
because you gotta go collect the characters like Pokeballs.
Exactly. The only piece in the galaxy we've ever seen and I know it's named Star Wars, not Star Peace, but like if the only piece we've ever seen is Yub Yub or whatever that was called, Jib Jub or whatever. What was it called? You know what I'm talking about? The song that Ewoks sing at the end.
No, I know. Look, the song. Yeah.
Look, it's later here than it is there. You know what I mean? At the end of Return of the Jedi, the Ewoks sing Yub Yub or Jib Jub or
one happy bonfire. And then
that's it.
And then the next,
you know what I'm talking about? It's the Yub Yub song.
Yeah,
what's it called?
They all sing. Yeah, it's Yub Yub. They all sing, and everything's great. And the movie ends. And then like the next morning, they wake up, and there's beer. Yeah, there's beer cans everywhere, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on? What happened?" And they
Yub Nub.
Yub Nub.
Yub Nub.
Yub Nub.
What did those Sesame Street aliens used to say? The ones that have the big mouths and they just. Never mind. I thought they said yip yips. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Man, I had to go deep into my brain for that one.
Jib Jab was that site where you put pictures on it and it made.
And Nien Numb is a guy in the rebellion, which a funny quick aside, because when I went to Galaxy's Edge or whatever with John, this most recent universe.
You couldn't think of real words for a second because of all this fucking gobbledygook we're saying.
Yep. Anyway, we were on the Ride of Resistance. We were on the Rise of the Resistance ride, and John, he was like, we gotta get into this is going to be a longer story than I intended, but the queuing system in that basically makes you get into vehicles that shake around, and the queue is the ride. It's like a slow blend of
cool.
Waiting in a line
That's
to
cool.
being on a ride.
So it's not so boring.
Yeah. And so they're like, you're the new wave of resistance fighters. You got to get onto this drop ship, and you get on there. And John just goes earlier in the line. John was like, a very, very, famous character makes an appearance on this ride. And I turned to him and I go, is it Nien Numb? And he looks at me, he goes, who the fuck told you? What? How did you do that? How do you know who that is? And I was like,
who is this?
I was like,
how do you spell
I know
it?
who.
Is this the guy who's in the...
He looks like he's got a vagina on his face.
Yes.
He's that guy. He's sideways vagina face.
So
man.
he
goes. He's Lando's co-pilot in the third movie,
Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Anyway, so we get on the drop ship, and I go, John Nien Numb. He goes, yeah, I don't know how you fucking called that. He's got a little animatronic in the front of the ship, just like. Anyway,
this is so goofy.
I like to picture Lando sitting down and be like, okay, we ready to go. Oh, Jesus Christ.
It looks like what I had last night.
How did you find me again?
Anyway, to steer this back on track, you were asking what do we want to see from Star Wars going forward? I have no hope for the movies, and it's not to say that they might not be good or anything, but they're just never going to be what I want, because they're always going to further the the at least maybe not the Skywalker stuff, but the top level Force users against one another, which is just never really going to be my bag. So I don't mind the movies just doing whatever, but if they have this massive IP in this giant world and there's a small screen, just throw me a bone every now and then. There's even the Vision stuff that I've been watching. just to see smaller filmmakers getting to try their hands at something big is always going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And, that's the smallest of the small. That's like animation directors and stuff. So like, I've been even thinking like, if I was to ever be able to do a Visions short, which short form animation has basically been my life for 12 years, like, I'm like, cool, that doesn't need to be giant. It doesn't even need to be, Skywalkers or Jedi anything. I would love to do like a small little like A-wing squadron, do it like Maverick, but in space kind of thing. Like, you can do cool shit in a giant universe as long as you're showing people that like they can just sample whatever they want from Star Wars. Just don't expect me to watch it all.
I just want to watch something where at the end of it, I'm like, okay, this wasn't a waste of my time, or it wasn't like,
don't we all?
like after I finished Kenobi, I was like, that was so bad. And it was bad.
I finished it.
Yeah, I know.
Same.
I can't, I finished it and I was like, I can't believe that this was as bad as it was. Like, it was terrible. Yeah. For so many reasons, it was just patently bad. And the same with Boba Fett. I just thought that the best episode of Boba Fett is not even really a Boba Fett episode. Like there's a whole episode where Din Djarin shows up. Like, the Mandalorian is in an episode with him. He shows up and he helps them with this thing, and someone else is there. It's like, oh, there's a character named Cobb Vanth played by Timothy Oliphant. Was that in The Mandalorian, or was that in Boba Fett? Never mind. But like, I like all these things for what they are, and I like that, the Ahsoka, the Andor people were like, let's shoot in like real locations, and let's essentially barely make a Star Wars show. That's fine, because I watched it and I was like, good job. Like, they shouldn't all do this. This wouldn't work for Ahsoka. I really liked Ahsoka. I liked it more than I liked this one season of Ahsoka, I think, more than I enjoy The Mandalorian as a whole, because the main character is a Jedi, and I just like that.
So let me ask you a question. I heard in order to really enjoy Ahsoka, you have to have watched Rebels or Clone Wars or whatever
both really. And I've seen neither.
Yeah, which is why I can't get into it.
Yeah, I ain't watching that.
So I've seen neither. I have little kids, so I imagine at some point I might watch these things.
Yeah.
Might. I'm paying for Disney Plus in perpetuity through my phone plan, and my kids will never age out of it. So I might get around to it. I wouldn't say you have to have watched it. I would say that you probably will enjoy it more if you have seen those things. I liked Ahsoka just fine, not having seen those things. So he shows like Ezra Bridger. I'm like, is he important? And it's explained to you within the narrative why it's a big deal, or, so it's not like they just expect you to know. But it's probably a lot more fulfilling for you if you hear his name and you've seen him before, and now you're looking at a human being playing him. Some of these people, like the guy who plays, what's the bad guy's name? I can't remember the villain's name. Huh?
Thrawn.
Yeah, that's the voice actor who plays him in the show. Like that dude.
Cool.
That dude is now playing him in live action. Like, that's really cool.
It's like everybody saying they wanted Kevin Conroy to be Batman when he was around. I was like, I don't know, man.
So who else? There's a couple of other people who were voices on the show. Oh, like David Tennant. I mean, he's still a voice, but like David Tennant is like this droid, like Ahsoka's like droid or whatever. I can't remember his name either. But they pulled people from the series to come be in the show still. And that's cool, I thought. I mean, I also just like Rosario Dawson. I don't know if I'm full blown into her performance as Ahsoka, but I had a lot of notes about Ahsoka. I think I wrote the longest note section on this more than anything else, but like between Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, what I have come away with is just like Dave Filoni is the right person to be in a position of power in Lucasfilm, because the best Star Wars stuff seems to be things that he had a direct or controlling hand in. Like, people swear up and down through the Clone Wars and Rebels. That's Dave Filoni. The Mandalorian, that's Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. Ahsoka, he wrote every episode. Like it's singularly his script. It's not like a bunch of fucking people taking an episode like TV normally is. It's like, well, this is a mini series. It should, in my opinion, that should all be written by one guy. It should be an arc guided by one person. And I feel like it pays off here. And especially since it's adapting, essentially continuing. He even admitted like Ahsoka is really, Rebels season 3, whatever it really is just another season of Rebels. Basically, it's like live action Rebels. Where would these characters be basically? And I'm fine with that. Like I said, I do think it requires some foreknowledge of the animated shows, but
so this takes place after Return of the Jedi, yes?
Yeah, it takes place in the interim between the trilogies.
That's right.
Sorry,
yeah, because it has
the original and the sequel trilogy.
Somewhat concurrent with Mandalorian.
So Ahsoka was around then during the original trilogy.
Yeah, you don't remember her character design in the Clone Wars cartoon, the Gendy Tartakovsky one?
No, I do, but I mean in the original trilogy, she's out there somewhere. So the Return of the Jedi is not that Luke is the only Jedi, but there are other Jedi out there, Ahsoka being one.
Yes.
And she wasn't even trained by Skywalker, I don't think.
But why wasn't she interested in Luke? She didn't know about Luke?
I can't remember. I read this somewhere. Like someone explained it. Like, why wasn't she around? Okay. Because she was maybe, I don't know if she doesn't know about him or what, but like, I mean, she was, I don't know what y'all know about Ahsoka as a character. She was the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. That's why she's like special. He was her master. It seems like she should have been in charge of watching Luke, not Obi-Wan. Yeah, maybe that's what they expected though. Like, find Ahsoka Tano. She's probably in charge of my children. Like, don't bring them to her. What was she doing for all that time? I can't remember. There's that's the real reason is like this character didn't exist, but there's some in-universe reason that someone has given something to do with disillusionment from all that. I mean, after her master turns into like the most evil person, if I have to see one more person be disillusioned, I'm going to lose my mind. But I think if you're going to authentically feature these characters in this show, you have to somewhat acknowledge the events of Rebels. Otherwise, like it's sort of like, then why are we watching this? Because why does this character matter? But it prevents casual viewers from appreciating the show on a deeper level. But it seems comfortable with that, simply entertaining the casual audience. While deepening the lore for serious fans, the same people who may have seen the show or even read the books and shit, all those fucking novels. But I think that the singularity of Dave Filoni's fingerprints goes a long way on this show. But like I said, I think I might like this more than I like The Mandalorian right now. I really like those first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and this recent season I thought was fine. But I think that this show does what Mando can't, which is it feels more human to me and fresh. Sega does what Nintendo don't.
What man don't?
Oh, what man don't? Okay. I missed an opportunity.
Ahsoka does what man don't.
What man don't?
I saw Dustin's face. He saw my face. I was like, was he making a Sega reference or what?
Ahsoka has blast processing.
I think it feels more human to me and more fresh in its presentation than Mando does at this point, at least. And I have to think that it's just Filoni's being as a better writer than some of these other people, maybe. Like these characters speak like Star Wars characters, but it doesn't feel stiff like a lot of Star Wars dialogue does. I'm not sure how else to explain it. It's just they're talking and it feels conversational and it feels contemporary, but it doesn't feel like people going like, "Hey man, fucking the guy," right? Like, like it doesn't sound like us, and it's not people just pretending we're not in a Star Wars show. I don't like hearing fucking dank ferric. I don't like hearing fake Star Wars curse words. I hate that. I think it's stupid. You don't remember that at all? Oh yeah.
What's her name?
Everyone.
The Mandalorian woman leader. I can't remember her name.
I don't remember that.
Bo-Katan. And
so what's really funny is that she's from Battlestar Galactica, where they say fracking instead of fucking, and I'm like, oh, she must be used to that on set, saying made up swear words.
Well,
That's all they did on
no.
Firefly too.
Yeah.
Sure. I think I get the reason why it's written. I'm still like, I don't know. Because especially when you have like Han Solo saying like, well, where the hell is it? You're just like, well,
Yeah.
why can't we just say that? Like, can we just say that? Anyway.
So, finish it up. My bad.
Well, I was just going to say like, I think it doesn't cheat the vernacular of the world. I just think it's a line that they walked really well, but I think that it helps that the show has lightsabers and force users being used by human actors and not a cute puppet, you know, that I just think that matters. I think that that's fun. And I think it's fun because I think what's fun about Star Wars is because a few characters have magic powers in an already exciting world of space battles and light speed, and adding the force and lightsabers and psychic abilities makes for a great show that doesn't jump the shark, because the Jedi aren't invincible. They're not all powerful. They don't have plot armor. They just have enough skills to keep them from being killed easily. A little bit of flexibility on that, but like it's really easy to tell. Like I don't like Leia like floating through space and force grabbing a ship and flying back onto it. I think that's fucking stupid. That's too much for me. But Jedi have enough. Like in Ahsoka, like her ship is broken and there's fighters coming, and so they're trying to fix it, and she's trying to buy them time. So she puts on like a fucking spacesuit, goes out on the wing. They shoot blasters at the ship. She deflects them with her lightsaber, and then jumps up and cuts one of the fucking wings off as they try to fly by her. And I was like, that's fine. That's fine, because that all makes sense to me. It makes sense why her sword works. It makes sense she has magnetic boots. It makes sense that she can reach. That all is fine. That's fun. It's exciting, and it can only happen in Star Wars. If someone did that in The Mandalorian, I think that was stupid.
But was there sound in space?
Is there was THX 5.1 sound. Anyway, I think it's perfectly fine. I think the quality was there on Ahsoka, but Kellan, were you about to say something about people talking like normal people?
No, I might give Ahsoka a shot. I don't know. I'll probably give it an episode or two or something. But no, it was something when you were talking about Mandalorian and what kind of show it is now. Dustin, if you haven't seen the third season, I specifically want to tell you to never watch it, but also I want to see your reaction to watching it. The episode for Christopher Lloyd. That episode was...
speaking of looking old.
Lloyd's in Mandalorian?
Oh, he looks so old.
That episode was pretty rough.
He is old. No.
No, but Mandalorian, like I said, the more it got tied into narratives that weren't its own and revered other characters more than its own characters. That's when I think it started kind of going downhill. But I know
Jack Black showed up in that one.
Huh?
Right? Jack Black showed up in season 3. Yes.
There's an episode.
Oh God, yeah,
with Jack Black and Lizzo.
But it basically,
I vaguely know who Lizzo is.
The Mandalorian is now kind of like Forrest Gump, like bumbling through like the background of like more important characters. You know what I mean? Like, like he would be back there going, "I gotta pee," kind of like it. It feels like he is the Forrest Gump, just kind of stumbling his way into important like characters and people, and I just really don't like it because I really like
to ruin
Pedro
your
Pascal.
party.
I really like the way he plays the character. They've been writing it way farcical, in my opinion.
What I like about The Mandalorian is that I'm only just now beginning to understand that their characterization of Din Djarin he's essentially a religious fundamentalist.
Yeah, he is.
Like, and everyone's, and the more I see him that way, the more I'm sort of having fun with the side characters who are like, you never take off your helmet, like never, like they're just like, what if you have to poop or eat or whatever, you know, just like. They see him as goofy, and it's a fun way to recontextualize the show. I like that The Mandalorian is somewhat more mature, you know, like it just feels like a rougher world than all this other popcorny stuff. But what the second season did a little bit too much was pander, like you were saying, Kellan. And my big thing coming into 3 was, will it pander? And I think there's enough pure entertainment there. It's not prestige television like Andor is, but it's solid and it's entertaining. I think I was overall in on this season. I just thought it was fun, but it does have a lot of problems that are like not good trends for them to be doing with Star Wars. Like you're talking about like Forrest Gumping him but like, if you want to show me more fun dogfights or a bunch of Mandalorians in jetpacks trying to save a little kid Mandalorian from a giant fucking sea monster, that was cool. That was fun. All that stuff that I like to see in Star Wars. But
yeah, I never have a lack of fun while watching it. I guess I'll put it that way. Like even in that episode I was talking about with Christopher Lloyd and Jack Black and Lizzo, like the chase scene was fun. That what I'm talking about from that episode.
Which one?
They're trying to find like what droids are kind of malfunctioning and killing people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have one very specific like annoyance about the plot in season 3, and I kind of want to use Dustin as my stooge for this. Like, okay, Dustin.
Okay.
You've seen season 1 and 2.
Yes.
All right. You know enough about like what the dark saber is, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Gustavo Fring has it and wants it.
Gustavo Fring has it. Yeah, he wants it. And it's basically like the savior weapon of the Mandalorian, and whoever like has it is the leader of the Mandalorian. And blah blah blah.
That was her, Katie Sackhoff. That was another character who was brought from voice to live action in these shows. She was the voice of Bo-Katan. Yeah, on the Clone Wars, and so her playing her in live action is like a thing.
That makes sense.
Okay, cool.
So.
Whew, okay, I can rest.
Really, really cool plot point is that this character this other Mandalorian that he's allied with, who isn't, doesn't follow his same creed, but like they both are fighting for the same cause. So they're joining together. A point of contention could come down between them where the Mandalorian wins in a battle and wins the Darksaber, which is the thing that she needs to feel legitimate in her reign, as the leader of the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a really interesting plot point to like, and the only way you can get that Darksaber is if you win it in battle. So now she either needs to kill him and take it in be victorious in battle, or he will die and lose it to someone else and then she can win it. But like, that's a really interesting wedge to drive between your characters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know what they do with that?
Does that sound like walk it all back?
It seems like it'd be a really, really fun thing to explore story on. He goes, here you go. And she goes, okay. And I'm not kidding you. That's literally all that happens. There's no plot that like goes after it. Like nobody says like, you didn't win that in war. It's illegitimate. No, he just goes, here you go. You can have it.
And he does, that's the thing, in secret. Like they could have at least in secret been like, hey, just take this. Don't tell anyone you got it from me. Like he gives it to her in front of these people.
All of her people
who would know that it's illegitimate. Like they're even telling her like, you don't wield the Darksaber. You'd have to kill this man or whatever for it to be legitimate. And he basically goes, hey, fucking, I don't want it. Okay, here. And surrenders it. And they're like, okay, I guess.
So, and it's in his character to be like, I shouldn't be the one to wield this. He's a modest character, but it should have been like, no, this is not how this works. And you should understand more than anybody as a, fundamentalist following the rules that you have for yourself. And it's like, they didn't do any of that. And so the whole time I'm just like, the show does not care at all about the story anymore. It's literally going from an episode to episode and seeing
you could also do, instead of like, him wanting to keep it and her wanting to take it, you could flip it and have him want to give it up.
That's what I'm saying.
Say, I won't take it because I have to win it from you.
Yeah.
I'm challenging you, and him being like, I don't accept the challenge.
But I also think
giving it to you.
I think maybe part of what they were doing with that was like, again, if you look at through the context of fundamentalism, what's happening at this point in the show is people going like, okay, like we don't have to exactly like we don't need to never like she's accepted into his clan as like the old versus the new. Like Bo-Katan walks in both worlds. Like she doesn't have to wear a helmet. Like that's not a big deal. She's still a Mandalorian. And so for her, I guess that's just her way of going like, I don't have to fucking kill him. Like who says who? Like I don't have to murder an ally just so I can have the Darksaber. Like he can just give it to me. Like it does work in universe because basically everyone just goes like, yeah, why do we have to kill the person who has it? That's kind of fucked up, isn't it? Like, what if we're friends, And
right.
But you're right that from a writing standpoint, that's a big dramatic wedge that we never pay off.
I think that's a season-long arc that plays out, and the climax is the battle between the two of them, in which he realizes, like, I'm going to have to fight her. They fight, and he is the whole time, like, on the defensive, right? And she's going after him, and this whole thing. And then finally, she bests him, and the crowd's around, and it's the, I'm going to kill you, the killing stroke. And she stays her hand and says, "This is stupid, right? You're an ally. I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to take it." And there you go. I don't know. I mean, it's probably predictable and whatnot to have that happen, but at the same time, at least you get the drama of it for a season, and it's not just thrown away. It's the same thing. It reminds me of this. Freaking what's her name? Rey. You have to take this lightsaber to Luke. Okay, cool. Whoop, done. He throws. It's the same thing. I'm gonna build this thing up. Done. And you could say subverting expectations all day long, but it's also like throwing away good conflict. It's throwing away. It's like some subversion is great. Don't get me wrong. It's great to be able to do something that your audience doesn't expect, or the opposite of what they expect. But what isn't great is when you, instead of yes-anding yourself, is when you say no but. And that's where I take umbrage. And so that's what that was. And that's what this sounds like. It sounds like we've built up this thing, and you can yes and it, or you can no but it. And they no butted it.
Speaking of umbrage, it's a lot like the Elder Wand in Harry Potter. It's like,
what a segue.
It's you
well done.
You kill the person with the Elder Wand, and now it's yours. But you don't have to kill it. You just have to take it.
Yeah.
Like later, it's like, oh no, you don't have to kill the person. You just have to disarm them. Well, shit, people disarm each other all the time in Harry Potter.
Yeah, I definitely murdered a guy for this.
I killed my father.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm a very cynical person these days, but I suppose in summary, I think it just means I'm not the audience for most of these things. And if they throw me something that I can like chew on a little bit, I'll be down for that. I know they're not going to stop this machine. So if the machine like kind of outputs a thing that I go, and then like enjoy a little bit of it and just kind of don't watch the rest of it, that's fine with me. That's my stance on Star Wars.
Yeah, and my stance is I think that the space wizards should be the protagonists. At least not in every show, but we can't forget them. And
we can have new ones.
Well, we have to have new ones. We need new ones, and the new ones should be involved in ethical dilemmas that are new, because we've seen the idea of like this, semi-religious order of Jedi becoming political, and why that sucks. And we've also seen them be like down to nothing and slowly claw their way back to relevance and, this heroic mythical status. And then we've seen that just completely undermined. I think what we do next is we take those characters and say, look, they're great. They mean well, they're heroes, but they don't always make good decisions. And then we can deconstruct what a Jedi is in a better way, and get to know, because like, here's the thing. Anakin we always knew, because when we're watching the prequels, we always knew he's going to fall. And with Luke, you kind of always know he's going to not fall. You know what I mean? Like, there's always like the join me, but you kind of know he's not going to join him. Like, then the conflict is mostly over. So what we need is a character who has a true shot at turning one way or another, or a character who means well, but continually makes terrible decisions. Like, imagine a wandering Jedi, coming across a feud, picking a side in this random planet, picking a side, fighting for it, and realizing that they were the bad guys the whole time. And he just did something awful. And like, these are like ethical conundrums that Jedi should have to deal with, and that they're not always right. And I think that was the point of the prequels, but do it better.
Do you think that you're talking about the protagonists, being flawed and having a bit more nuance to them?
Yeah.
The whole time I'm sitting here talking about like what Star Wars can or can't do. It could do anything, but like, what will they ever do with it?
Yeah.
Do you think that they would ever take the time to like actually make you understand the villains? Like, they are so cartoonish. They're so cartoonish. And what you're talking about depends on having motivations that would make sense for a character that you just introduced. They could go either way. They're sitting on that edge. And like, if the Force really works that way, kind of thing, like, you can't just be Ben Solo and tip towards the bad side just cause, and you don't even understand why he hates everything and he's so angry, yada, yada, yada. And that ultimately is because you don't actually know what the First Order, what the Empire even stands for, because ultimately it's just a shadowy guy going, ugh.
But like, because I guess the idea was, I don't like the Jedi because my uncle tried to kill me. And but that's not like, why turn your back on the whole thing just because of that? And also, I again take umbrage with the fact that he tried to kill him. Like, this is no budding Luke's character arc. But like, for me, do I think that they'll do that? It's hard to say, because like, you obviously, like, I think it takes a skilled writer, because you don't want to humanize somebody, because if you take the Empire, and the Empire, is comparable to a lot of real life dictatorial regimes or what have you, you don't want to humanize them too much and make it seem like
they're cool.
Well, but this guy's pretty good.
No, but it's always nice to know like why they're doing what they I do think it can work that way, because you do have characters that come from the Empire. Like if you to say Finn, they made it so he had no agency in that decision to become a stormtrooper. Some people do. The reason I was kind of asking that is that, like, in the zeitgeist right now, everybody's like joking about how men think about the Roman Empire all the time, yada yada.
Yeah.
Like, the Roman Empire was both an amazing thing and a terrible thing at the same time, and it depended who you were within it or without it. Yeah. So like, I don't mind the idea of like, maybe not this Empire, because like, it's been done to death and it's been a cartoon villain the whole time, but like playing with the idea of talking about like what a wider view on the galaxy means, and someone wanting like progress. And the Roman Empire did amazing shit, but they were fucking awful and brutalized people and erased cultures.
I think what you do with it is you make the Empire, like, you make a big story about capitalism. You have a guy who's in charge, the CEO. You have the guy who's in charge of the Empire, and he's under a lot of fucking pressure to expand the Empire. And if he doesn't, his board of directors will get rid of him, and they'll anoint some asshole who will get it done. So he's a guy who's willing to do bad things, but he feels forced into it. I think, but they won't do that, because at some point Disney will watch that print and go, "Wait a minute,
that's us."
Is that us?
Yeah.
But that's what it should be. Like, that's the only way that you can get a bunch of artists like interested in actually writing about something and humanizing or giving cause to an expansive, not broadly applicable benefit to society is this thing expanding, because it needs to expand, or else nothing's happening, and that's bad somehow.
Depends on larger and larger revenue.
I'm your new emperor, Darth Revenue.
Bob Chapek.
Revenue's got a pretty good Star Wars-y sound to it.
There you go.
Darth Revenue.
Darth Revenue.
That's pretty great.
Everyone under my empire shall have a very generous 5 days of PTO every year.
They'll pull a Barbie and have it be self-referential about the corporate structure.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll go for that.
Yeah.
Well. So here's the thing though, with the sequel trilogy, they had a real opportunity to say, okay, our characters, Leia, Luke, Han, have created this peaceful galaxy, and it's way better than it's ever been, right? It's fantastic. But then Ben Solo comes along, and he's disillusioned with it. Like, again, I hate disillusioned, but whatever. Like he realizes he's a young person, and as always happens, the young look at what the generation before has done and says, we can do it better. And he says, I can do it better. And that sows the seeds of what the First Order would be, and he himself becomes this thing that fights against his parents and grandparents and whatever. Like, you could do that. The problem is, as a writer, if you don't strike that balance perfectly, then you demonize Luke, Han, and Leia, which they ultimately did anyway, so does it matter? But but you don't want to demonize those characters. So I understand why maybe they would veer against that. But now, post 7, 8, 9, they have the opportunity to say, now post Luke, post Leia, post Han, post Rey, we have this world that works. Like, everything's
do you think they're
going
to abandon that cast?
I don't know.
I mean, the younger ones. Do you think they're going to always try to bridge them?
I know that they have announced a new movie with Daisy Ridley.
What?
Yeah. So that
a Star Wars movie?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, John Boyega's like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I think John Boyega's done.
No.
Kelly Marie Tran is done.
Yeah, I think they're all done. But Daisy Ridley agreed, and they brought her out onto a stage during Star Wars Celebration. It was like, I'm doing a new movie, and all the fans, collectively exploded. And hooray! Yeah, we hate this character 6 months ago, but now we love them.
Yeah.
And
I just want to be like, why was your reflection all scary? Like, none of this shit was explored.
Nothing makes sense. It's not her fault. She doesn't know either. But like,
I was just looking at a green screen, you guys.
Why did you lie to an old lady in the desert about what your last name was? She's just an old lady.
I always wanted that shot to last a little longer, and she says Skywalker, and the ghost of Han and Leia or Luke and Leia go, What? That's not your last name.
Hey,
you can't do that.
That's fraud.
That's identity theft.
Ultimately, the worst thing they did was imply that Palpatine got busy when he was all ugly and disgusting.
Yeah. We don't talk about Palpatine.
Who?
Do it.
We don't talk about Palpatine.
I have to put it through my robes. I'm sorry. Yeah. It also got electrified.
Unlimited power.
I need my machine.
It looks like a dripping waxy candle. Sorry.
My wick. To steer us back, but you can do that now, right? Post all of that, post 7, 8, 9. You can say, okay, we live in peace, and now we can take the time, like, almost make our protagonist the villain. Like, that would be interesting. It's The Godfather. It's Bonnie and Clyde. It's, you're taking the villain, you're making them the protagonist, and you're trying to get us on board with this anti-hero type thing, and then slowly turn them good, or don't. I don't care. But at the end of the day, we know that good must win. So whatever. But like, I think that would be interesting to take a spin on it and have our. So we've always seen the good guys are the rebels and the Empire are the bad guys in charge. But what if we flipped it and had the good guys are the ones in charge and the bad guys are our protagonist rebels, and, flip the whole thing on its head? That could be interesting. I don't know, but I would love to see Star Wars take some risks like that. I don't know that they ever will, to answer your question.
I don't think the main... Right. I don't think the main trilogies can ever be anything other than recycling the same themes. Like,
yeah, probably.
If you don't do that shit, people will be like, why was this such a small little whatever thing? Yeah. Like, you can't do anything but big epic fight between two factions, and one of them has to be obviously bad.
Yeah. Unless they do whatever, more of a Star Wars story.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
sure.
but then that's side
but
story
they've only
stuff.
done 2 of those,
Yeah.
really.
And they're not
those
doing
are tied
anymore. And they
they're-
shoved them all into TV
right.
productions.
The 2 they made were tied to the main continuity somehow. Like one's
like
a
that
Han
Boba
Solo
Fett thing was
prequel.
supposed to be a movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so
wow.
is Kenobi.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I've only moderately ever cared. It's going to take a lot to get me to turn me into a fan of this universe, like a true fan, because as it always has been, Star Wars is a good trilogy surrounded by a lot of really garbage things and a couple of good things, but it's still just a good trilogy that has spawned some good things and a lot of bad things. And so for me, it's going to take a lot to either, like right that wrong, like that imbalance, or, just do, I don't know, take some swings, do something kind of cool. Like Kellan said earlier, do something with different genres or different feel, different tone, and I'll grab what I like. But as it is, there's not a whole lot that I've liked. So I don't know where we go from here, but I do think that part of it is we now know, because of the prequels and because of the casino planet on The Last Jedi, don't go goofy. Like, please don't go goofy. Take it seriously, but it doesn't have to be adult, but it does need to be serious. And so as long as you take the world seriously and the story, I think we'll be okay. I think I'll at least somewhat enjoy it. But we just have to get rid of this time period. Like, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. We have to be done with Empire versus Rebels. We have to be done with it.
And
There's
I would also
no more story to tell.
I'd also add, plan your trilogy. Jesus, I couldn't believe that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
I couldn't believe they didn't plan the trilogy.
How could you not? Like, Kellan, you and I have done some writing recently. How do you sit and write a screenplay without ever thinking of what the next 2 episodes could be?
How do you pay billions of dollars for the opportunity to do that and not do that?
And not do it. And I understand if JJ had said, like, this is my story, beginning to end, soup to nuts, here it is. This is it. And then they like hand it to Ryan and say, do whatever you want. And Ryan Johnson delivers this script that's off the wall and has nothing to do with the thing. And now JJ has to come back and like try to weave back to what he wanted to do or whatever. Like, I understand that, but then that's a failure on the part of Disney for hiring somebody that colored with outside of the outlines. And you just can't do that in a trilogy like this.
If JJ steered it back to where he wanted it to be in the first place, then it was doomed. Because if he ultimately wanted to be Palpatine is alive somehow.
Yeah.
The villain from the last 2 movies, I got a couple of spares in a tank.
Yeah.
And then these 2 characters that have never seen each other face to face until this movie, like, make out and share their life energy to sit. I don't even remember how that movie ended.
Also, don't tell Snoke, but I have a 3rd clone of him in my bedroom.
I didn't give him eyes. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that. That's just creepy.
He never knew it. Every time I saw him, it was weird because he didn't know I was being weird, but I felt weird talking to him, knowing what I was doing to him.
Where does that movie even land? I cannot remember. And I feel like I've seen the Red Letter Media thing about this like 800 times and my brain can't comprehend it. Is Snoke a clone? I mean, is Palpatine a clone or is that Palpatine?
No, they never answer it. He's just been there.
I hate this.
I know.
Somehow Palpatine returned. That if that's not bad enough, then the idea is like, is that even Palpatine? Yeah, I don't know. It could be. He's always been here.
People are like, it's the same one. I'm like, okay, that's dumb. And they're like, no, it's a different one. His fingers are burned. And I'm like, that's also
this is also dumb.
Yeah, so, I believe he's a different one, but I'm not sure. I
but
believe
why is he burned? If you clone somebody, they're not going to have the same physical scarring as the original.
Maybe he fell into a campfire.
Again.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm doomed to be burned.
It's a canon event. It's a canon event.
It's a canon event. Yeah.
But the point is, it's like they paid a bunch of money and then like didn't actually. They were like, oh, we have to make something.
He wasn't burned. That's just what Ian McDiarmid looks like right now. And they were like,
he's aged terribly.
I'd be
Does he have
interested in
cancer?
looking into like when they bought it and like when all of the like could it be that they just went, oh, we got it, let's just go, let's just run, and then like they didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
When they bought,
I used to think it was ridiculous that they didn't write out the whole arc of Lost, and now I completely understand that compared to the biggest movie franchise ever not having a plan.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. They also really, really messed up because they had a treatment, I believe, for an entire trilogy from George Lucas. And
I watched the thing about that.
He sold them the thing and said, here's the treatment. Yeah. And they literally did Luke Skywalker's thing and said, whoop, over the shoulder. Don't care. Right into the trash can. Kobe Bryant, that thing. Yeah. And it was done. And I'm like, look, say what you will about George. Say what you will about stilted dialogue. I hate sand. Say what you will about all of this stuff. But the truth is, it's his story, dude. Like, I don't know. There's a reason why we've exhausted every Ian Fleming novel. There's a reason we've exhausted every Arthur Conan Doyle story of Holmes. Like, because they originated it, they kind of have some say in it.
The thing is, George Lucas, like I read a whole book about that fucking guy and you know, everything we know about him already.
Chapter 7, salads.
George Lucas works best as a broad strokes, like idea person. What if there was a this? What about that? Blah, blah, blah. But characters, dialogue, scenes, everything else.
I love that you just described an entire screenplay.
Yeah. Every element of actually writing a screenplay.
That's why I think the Indiana Jones trilogy is like my favorite that he's involved in. He didn't direct those.
No.
Yeah, correct.
He just had a really good idea and something that made sense and was fulfilling for him and Spielberg. And then Spielberg went and did it. Like he has good ideas. Oh, Star Wars, that's a really fun idea. But but let someone else like execute it. So I agree, Dustin. I would have liked it if he had been like, listen, like, I'm selling. It would have been a great publicity. It would have been great press to be like, hey, I sold the company for fucking $4 billion and I'm filthy rich now. And you can all go fuck yourselves for talking shit about my movies. But for the people who like what I do and stuff, like, they're making more movies, but I have plotted the broad story for this new trilogy, but other writers, so essentially he wouldn't say this in a press conference, but maybe George Lucas would, but George Lucas would have story by credit on all three of these stories. Like it was his idea. He plotted it out, but then other people came in and said, okay, here's the broad strokes from George. Can we please make this more interesting and have characters and have a fun story and have some cool dialogue and just have some new interesting shit that executes this in a way that's really cool. Whatever. Like I that would have been nice. And it would have had some cohesion.
I guarantee you it would have respected those characters, those original characters.
Yes.
And I guarantee you it would have given us something that's a freaking no-brainer, and I don't understand it, and I'll never understand it. I'll go to my grave scratching my head over this.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they not do one scene where Luke, Han, and Leia were together?
Yeah. You would have had that. You wouldn't have killed all three of those characters, and you would have had way more of them acting together. You can kill them, but put them like respect them. Yes, and their story. Yeah, and put them in a scene together, because that is Star Wars. I'll say this,
or at least at that point,
they would have all three not had meaningless deaths.
Yeah, right.
Which is basically what they had.
Yeah,
meaningless, small scale deaths. You may as well have had Han choke on a sandwich and Luke fall down the stairs.
Yeah.
And Carrie Fisher gets in like a car accident.
They all just died of being elderly.
Yeah, right. Well, and since when? I mean, I don't know. I still don't understand the Obi-Wan thing, the Obi-Wan death, but like, since when does using the Force make you die?
My favorite meme from Star Wars is is the picture of Yoda dying. It's like, I love that Yoda does that parent thing where he just gets so tired of listening to Luke that he just dies.
I saw that.
I've been in the car driving my kids sometimes, just been like, I wish I could just fucking disintegrate. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why using the Force takes it out of you like that. I mean, I guess it is strenuous, but like dying?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you pass out first?
What I think all this conversation means is that I think we're probably all on the same board. All on the same page about how, like, just because Star Wars is fun doesn't mean it shouldn't make sense and be fulfilling and rewarding as a story.
Yeah. The whole series smacks of like making up a bedtime story for your kids on the spot. And then the guy, the guy in the suit just swings, and the other guy disappears.
And somehow Emperor Palpatine survived.
But how, Daddy?
Don't worry about
moving
it.
On. Yeah, moving on.
I told you, but you were asleep already.
And how are we going to deliver this information to the audience? The scroll. Palpatine lives.
Sing Yub Yub again or whatever. I still can't even remember.
Do you remember that the very first thing that announced that Palpatine was back and was the bad guy in the movie was a Fortnite crossover?
Was it really?
What?
During this like event, like I don't play Fortnite, but apparently like there are timed events, so like stuff can happen in the game world. And they had some big ominous like sound that happened, and then like some dialogue started, just like it was Emperor Palpatine speaking out to the fucking like galaxy saying that he was back or some shit like that.
Wow.
And then that was how they announced that Palpatine was coming back, and I was like, oh dear, oh gosh,
oh wow,
yeah.
Was the sound Ian McDiarmid dying?
I don't know, but I just remember that and being like, what timeline do I live on, and why is this happening?
I was going to say, imagine the MCU announces Galactus as the next big villain in a Mountain Dew commercial.
Dude, I could honestly believe that.
Like during the Super Bowl or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Taco Bell commercial. Yeah. Enjoy your cheesy chalupa as much as Galactus enjoys eating planets.
Yo quiero planetos.
And then like the Fantastic Four or whatever it is, like begins, and Galactus is just like, oh, what? You didn't see the commercial?
Why does it say that in canon in the MCU is a Mountain Dew commercial? Oh, you had to see that Mountain Dew commercial.
It's on Disney Plus.
There's a Wikipedia page about it.
Oh, yeah. It was that Mountain Dew commercial for Game Fuel.
It was good stuff. All right. We should end this.
Star Wars or this conversation?
We should end them both. If we could do them both at the same time in a few seconds, that would be preferable.
Yeah,
well, they are making another season of Andor. It's the final season, but it's going to be out in August. It'll be out already. Like I guess they're already shooting it.
Oh wow!
So or they've already shot it.
When did they announce a green light?
I don't know. I think they just quietly were like, "Hey, we're making more."
I don't know how they could do that fast if they greenlit it during the whatever.
That must have been one of those things where they looked at it like in post and Kathleen Kennedy or someone must have been like, "Hey, this is good shit. Go ahead." Which is what you want. You kind of want them to just go ahead and start making stuff regardless of what the audience thinks. I mean, unless the audience thinks it's terrible. It's like, well, we're going to make another one anyway. But like you want that for a show. Like, oh, cool. I'm glad you like it. We already fucking shot the second season. So
maybe they should make a spinoff called Better Call Saw Gerrera.
Dustin's just zinging them out tonight.
I saw Dustin write that on an index card as soon as he sat down tonight.
There's another joke to be made, but I can't.
Off to the corner, he's like,
I wish I had the Star Wars knowledge to make this joke, but there's a planet. Is there not a planet in Star Wars called Camino?
There is.
It's where the clones are from.
Yeah.
El Camino, a Star Wars story.
Ow! That's another banger.
Oh,
another banger. I forgot about that movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. think that's it, guys. We did it.
We did it.
Yay.
Yay.
Bye.